The reality of your heart is that you won't find peace in your heart from your external world, from your circumstances, from your purpose. The truth is, what resolves the inside, the internal tension, is actually what you think. It's what you believe. And the presence of internal tension in our lives is evidence that we're believing a lie, that we're not aligned in our thinking to what's true. And this lack of alignment causes this tension. So what does this look like practically? In order to shift from internal tension to peace, you need to learn how to control your thoughts. You need to learn how to take better management of what you're thinking. This means seeing your external tension, seeing your internal tension, and aligning what your feeling is about those two to what you believe is true. And for me, it took 30 days of saying out loud that God loves me, that God's for me. Believing this truth in 30 days actually shifted my thinking. And all of a sudden I started waking up feeling God's love for me was true, it was real. I kept thinking if I do enough, then I'll be worthy of God's love. But I never was able to do enough and never felt like enough. And God was telling me at times that it was enough, but I didn't believe him. I wanted to feel like it was enough. I was chasing something I was never going to catch. All I had to do was stop and say, I've got to change how I think. I got to change what I believe. And when I actually put the work into doing that, it actually shifted how I felt about myself, how I felt about my world. Once I had this first change, I realized there were so many uncontrolled thoughts in my head that took me all kinds of places on a daily basis. And I learned how to identify those thoughts, see where the internal tension was underneath of them, and learn how to have a better thought, replace it, to identify the lies that I was believing and replace them with truth. It's this process that takes you from a mind and a heart that's twisted around by lies and by circumstances, and instead establish it on truth, giving you the ability to have a sound mind and take clear steps and walk forward based on what you believe is true, not what you feel is true in the moment. And even how to take those feelings and align them, shift them. If you have a feeling you don't like, it comes from a thought. And if you can change that thought, you get a different feeling. This was the reality that I needed to see a shift from living in a place of internal tension to living in a place of peace. What this looks like in my life today is taking time to process, thinking, what is the external tension I'm feeling right now? What is the internal tension I'm feeling? What's pressing me in my roles, in my job, in my marriage? What's pressing me in my heart? And learning how to change my thinking and decide what to think about each of those and approach them with a clear mind. That has shifted me from a place where I constantly felt like I was not enough. I constantly felt like there were so many things I needed to fix, constantly felt like I wasn't worthy of love, to where I now am able to see my lack and see challenges I'm facing and be honest about them and fair to myself and be able to think clearly about it. What this has looked like for me has been talking to God every day. God speaks to each one of us every day, and if we take our time and slow down, we can actually hear his thoughts towards us. And so I've taken the daily practice of telling God, thinking about, naming what I'm going through, and then asking God what his perspective is on it, and allowing myself slowly to embrace his perspective and realize that he has a better perspective, a better approach than I do. Another key in this is to separate your internal tension from your external tension. If you confuse these two and put them together, you will find yourself in a world of pain. You need to be able to identify your external tension and your internal tension and recognize how they get linked and unlink them so that you can solve each in the appropriate manner. If I feel like I'm not going to make enough money to pay my bills, I don't need that to lead me to believe that I'm not enough. I need to figure out in my external tension, how do I take the right steps to pay my bills? And in my internal tension, how do I align my thoughts to believe what's true so that I can address the internal and the external tension separately so that each can get resolved. The next step is to go through the See Your Heart course. The first step to resolving what's going on in your heart is actually seeing what's going on in your heart, and this course will help you see what's going on in your heart, see your internal tension, so that you can take the steps to resolve it.